Hi everybody, I'm trying to explain how the digital SLR camera works, and it's easiest for me to show you using the manual film camera, which is also a single lens reflex camera. So I'd like to show you on the film camera because it actually does what a camera is supposed to do, and a digital camera simulates what the film camera actually does. So I'm going to show you some important things for you to know so that you can understand a little bit better what you can control in your photograph. So this is a single lens reflex film camera. It does look a little bit like the digital camera, but it's older. And this camera has a lot of mechanical parts inside, so it's a little noisy, but it is great because you can change the lenses, you can do a lot of stuff with this camera, and it's really pretty awesome. So every camera has three major parts. That is the body. This is the body of the camera. It has an aperture, which is the hole in the camera, and in this case the hole is in the lens. And then it also has a shutter. So the shutter, if I open up the back of this camera, appears to look like a little window in the back of the camera body. This window can open and close to let light in. So those are the three major parts: the body, the aperture, and the shutter. Now usually there's a lens, and the lens is added in order to improve the image. I'm going to take the lens off of this camera, and I'm going to show you the aperture. So the aperture is the hole inside of the camera, and you can adjust this hole by moving the aperture ring on the lens. So it's getting a little caught right now, but it can get smaller and it can get larger. When it's larger, it's letting more light into the camera. When it's smaller, it's closing the light, it's shutting the light out. So the thing with film, or even the digital sensor in your digital camera, is that all film or sensors can only receive a specific amount of light. And you can let light into the camera in two ways. One is the duration of time that it enters the camera through the shutter as the shutter is open. And the other way is how big the hole is, or the aperture is, in the lens. So the bigger the hole, the more light comes in. And the longer the shutter is open, the more the light comes in. So I'm going to show you these two parts. So on the lens is an aperture ring, and it has different settings. These settings are called f-stops. Most lenses have very similar f-stops. On a digital camera, there's some in-between stops, but these are the size of the hole. So they represent the size of the hole. And the bigger the hole, you create this effect called depth of field. What is depth of field? Depth of field is the area of sharpness from the front to the back of the image. So sometimes you may have an image where everything appears sharp. So here's a picture. I hope you can see this. And you can tell that the corn in the front is pretty clear, and the pumpkins in the back are pretty clear. That is a large depth of field. In order to achieve that effect, you would need to use a very small aperture opening. So we would close this down. Think of your pupil. When you're looking far away and you want to see your friend, you're going to squint. So you're closing your eyes, your pupils down to sharpen your image. So from front to back, the area of sharpness is large. So that's a large depth of field. Now, if I were to let more light in by opening up the aperture and making a big hole, we get what's called a small depth of field, and it's a little hard to see in this. I'm going to try to show you some other examples too. But you can see that the dog is in focus, and the house, which is not that far away, is blurry. So if I were to show you these objects right here, I hope you can see them. I'm going to check and make sure you can. If I was playing around with depth of field and I spread these out, if I were to use a small depth of field, I may focus on this bird right here, and then this bird would eventually be blurry. So that would be a small depth of field. If I were to be able to focus all three, like it appears that the video camera is doing, that would be a large depth of field. So you can control that with your aperture. Okay. Shutter. The shutter is located inside the body of the camera. The shutter is like a window or a door that opens and closes at different speeds in order to let the light hit the film, which would be in this, a film cartridge would be placed in this socket, and it would be pulled across the shutter, and every time you open the shutter, a piece of film is exposed to light. The shutter can open and close at different lengths of time. So I'm going to actually set my shutter speed to a very slow shutter speed, and I'm going to show you the window opening. So if you saw the window open, that would have allowed the light to enter the camera for 1/4 of a second. Now I'm going to speed up the shutter speed, and I'm going to make it 1/500th of a second. So this time the shutter opened really fast, opened and closed really fast, and the light only has a little bit of time to enter. So there's less light entering the camera when the shutter speed is faster. So, what does shutter speed affect? Shutter speed affects the motion in the image. So in this example right here, you can see this girl. She's in a darker space, and you can see that there's this blur of motion. That was created by using a slow shutter speed. The girl stood in the same place for about a minute, and maybe 30 seconds into the minute, she turned her head very slowly like this, and the camera was able to capture all of that on film. If you are to use a fast shutter speed, you're going to get something more like this, where the action is stopped still. The motion is stopped in action. So between the two of these different parts of the camera, so the shutter and the aperture, along with also film speed, which eventually we will talk about, you have to balance how much light is hitting the film, because the film can only accommodate for a certain amount of light. So what is film speed? Film speed is how sensitive the film is to light. So there's different kinds of films you can buy, or sensors. You can set your sensor in your digital camera to a certain film speed, and it will make the sensor a certain amount sensitive to light in a certain amount. So you have to balance all of those things. How much light is coming in through the aperture? So how much light is coming in through the hole in the camera? How much light is coming in for a certain amount of time? So the shutter is opening and closing. And also, how sensitive is the sensor or the film to light? So you have to coordinate those through three things to balance out how much light you're getting. What is cool about knowing these things is that you know now that you can control whether or not you have an image like this or an image like this. You can control whether or not you have a large depth of field like this image or a small depth of field like this image. And through a lot of variables, chemistry of the development process or the digital process, you can control a lot of stuff in your image, and it makes it a lot more personal because you can really illustrate your idea. So you can make the picture be what you want it to be. So I hope that helps, and I will talk to you soon. Bye.